So when you see a down day on a Thursday, Friday, a big down day Friday, and then the bounce on Monday, that's because the the weekly options that expired in the money, the put options that were sold by the market maker, where they took all that premium in, they now have to buy back the shares at those strike prices to cover. And that buying causes, in the pre-market, a gap up. So what I always tell you, if you look at the alerts when we have gap ups like that, usually what's usually those of you that have been around for a while, what do I usually tell you on a gap up morning like that where the market maker had to cover and caused a gap up? To truly understand how the market is working and what to trade, what do I normally say after a gap up in the morning? Anybody remember? Anybody want to post it? What's the first thing to kind of test and look at after that gap up? Anybody? You guys read the alerts in the morning? It happens quite often. Yeah, Tiger Doc, that's part of it, right? We're waiting for some real buyers. What I usually will say is, does it fade? So that gap up, does it fade quickly? Meaning there are no real buyers that came in that are interested in buying? Or is that initial jolt of the market maker, once the market maker is done, price will fade like a balloon. It'll just kind of fade and pull back down to close the gap. And then once the gap fills naturally, as it kind of eases back after their buying is done, does it go back up at 10:45 or so, 10:30? Does the market creep back up after the gap fill? So you get a gap up. Does it slowly start to fill the gap down and then get some real buyers and take out the high? Or does, after the gap fill, does it start to drop right after that? Because if it drops right after that, there's no real buyers. There's not a buying appetite. And now max pain is a lot lower, and that drives the stock lower. So that's what we've been sort of watching. And yesterday was interesting. Today is a little different because you have a few other dynamics in play here for the SPY. So let's look at a 15-minute chart. Might be a little easier. So here, you see this gap up? That's the market maker doing what they got to do. So this is this morning. This is yesterday. Sorry, here's Monday. Here's the gap up Monday. See these three? Everybody see these three where I have the cross? See the three up candles right here? This gap up Monday morning. And look at the size of the first candle. Look at where we close here, right? We weren't open on Friday, right? So this is Thursday expiration, puts expiring in the money. And then Monday's gap up, and then look at the first 15 minutes, right up to 10 o'clock. Whoa. 10:15. Whoa. 10:30. And then right around 10:30, this is where I tell you, are we going to see a sell-up, pullback right away? And does that pullback hold? Or do we get real buyers to come in? Everybody see it? So you get that flush right after the market maker is done. Then you get the flush to close the gap. So here we are. And you get a little bit of a spurt here of buying right here. This is right at 11 o'clock on the button. The first 15 minutes moves higher. And so right here now in this gap fill is where we wait and see what happens. If you started to get some movement up, that would be real buying. And then maybe take out this top, and then you could be pushing a rally. But you can see where it failed here. It closed the gap, and at 11:30 it was already below the open, and then down she went, right? And we caught, a little bit of momentum around 2 o'clock. So this move here at the end of the day is the market maker exacting max pain. So max pain was 745 right here. So why would the market maker all of a sudden institute some increase of buying? Why would they increase their volume of buying right here? Look at this, guys. This is at 2 o'clock. This is the 2 o'clock time of day shift. For those of you that have CTV, look at this. Right on the button. Literally right there. Why would they do that at the end of the day on Thursday before the market closed? Well, because max pain was 745. There were a lot of 740, a ton of 740 puts that the market maker did not want exposure to. So to not get exposure in the last 45 minutes of the day or so, hour or two of the day, they would buy up the SPY and push price just up here and close about 744. Well, that's perfect. 745 is where there were calls. So you close price below that call level, and you close price just slightly above the put level right here, so the market maker won't get killed. But there were still plenty of puts in the market. So Monday morning, bang, right here. So this is Monday morning right here. You see that initial gap up. When the market maker is done right here, as what is this? This is the 6th, right? Yeah. After the gap up, we look to see, is there any real buying? And there was some real buying. Yesterday, being Tuesday, got a bit of a gap down, and there was no movement to the upside, and you kind of just faded and finished here. And now we've got an interesting dynamic going on. So let's talk about what's happening right now. A few things that I talked about with you over the last few weeks, days, live sessions. As I told you, oil was finding a base. Do you guys remember that conversation? Okay, this is a 15-minute chart, but it does go all the way back to June 25th. We see a little bit of a spike up, then a gap down, then a gap up, another little gap up, and then a gap down. And all the while, it's sort of trading in this range, finding a bottom. And if you look here at the RSI, I know this is only a 15-minute chart, but you can see how it gets a little oversold, little oversold, little oversold, and it's sort of working its way up as it finds some support. And so now where are we? Well, oil's up almost 5% today. So those of you that have call debit spreads, today is a good day to take profits. If you want to wait another day, the oil will probably continue higher. But if you have anything that expires on Friday, then today would be a good day to take those profits. On top of oil finding a base, you have to remember crude, the price of crude lives in a certain range when the market is somewhat healthy, right? Where does crude usually, like if anybody watches the show Oil Man, he'll tell you, right? In one of the early episodes, he talks about the price of crude and how it affects, the markets. And they said something like, when crude is at between 65 and 75, it's just enough. It's just enough for, the oil companies to make money and the refineries to make money and be able to sell it, convert it to gasoline, and have everyone's fuel costs be reasonable. So we pay for airlines and cruises and trucking and shipping. Companies pay for it all, for shipping, energy costs, fill up our cars and trucks and all that kind of stuff, right? But we don't want to pay too much. So there's a certain balance in the oil markets, in oil and gas, where if price lives in a certain range, it's enough for the oil companies to make money, even on all of the losing rigs that they have, all of the exploration they do, all of the oil wells that need maintenance or stop, or the oil dries up and they have to drill again, or equipment breakdowns, all kinds of things that can happen that increase their costs. But when oil lives somewhere in that 65 to 75 range, everybody does well. Oil companies do well, and we are okay with the prices at the pump. When price gets too lofty and too high, for a number of reasons, in this case it was because of the Iran war, everybody suffers, and at some point it's got to come down. Now, it may not have come down had it not been for potential peace talks, but it did come down. But it came down so aggressively that it got sort of oversold. So if I go to a daily chart, let's go to an hourly first. Look at oil coming down like this. Look at this thing. Crazy, right? But you can see here, starting right about here, at the last week of June, you can see that it forms a bit of a base. And I've been talking about this in every session, right? And if you look at the RSI, see how we get really oversold here? This is about mid-June. We get really oversold here on the hourly. And we stay oversold. We gap up, we gap down, we gap up. We pretty much stay oversold until the end of June. If you guys look at the alerts, you can go back and see right here in this time period. See where it's oversold, but then it starts to move higher? This is on June 26th, June 29th, leading right into July. This is where I began the conversation of, hey, I really believe that oil is starting to find a base. And I started buying more USO. And I started selling American airline puts. Because it's what's the close to the number one industry that is affected by oil prices? Isn't it the airlines? So if you short the airlines, if you think oil's going to go up, right? Yeah, the 112, 120s, exactly. So where are we now? 114, not bad. But we also bought the 17 American Airlines puts for last week's expiration, which I rolled to this Friday. And now they're up 300% from where I initially got them. So if you have the AAL puts, as Michael is putting there, take your profits. I know you guys were nervous about them, but you stick with the narrative. The interesting thing is, I tell you not to trade a narrative, right? The narrative leads you to the setup. The setup leads you to what option, when to take the trade, where to get out if it doesn't work, what strategy to take. You allocate properly, and then you manage the trade. But you manage the trade inside of the narrative. Does that make sense? I know Michael understands that, but does everyone else understand that? In other words, as long as the narrative is that oil is oversold, is that oil is looking to find a base and bounce, as long as the narrative of tensions in the Middle East, then you stay in the oil position. It's okay that you're down on the position, but as soon as it starts to break and take a move, then you average down, and then you wait for the move like today, and then bang, you take your profits. So the narrative obviously is still there. Yeah, narrative to manage the trade. Exactly, Pac-Man. So the narrative leads us to what we could potentially trade. We look for a setup that the narrative leads us to, such as the dollar is now pulling back, so that should be good for gold. So let's pick up some GDX. We have to look at GDX. And we look at GDX, and there is a technical setup on it. It's oversold. Let's buy some GDX. We buy a put, we sell into a vertical, we take profits, and we manage that trade on the narrative that the dollar is falling. But as soon as the dollar starts to then find a base and looks like it's going to go higher, now the narrative is shifting. That, combined with hitting price target, is your exit.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video from Trade With Me Now. Make sure to go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our channel so you make sure that you catch our next video right when it's released. Also, if you have a question or comment, please leave that in the comment section below. And of course, if you want to learn more about Trade With Me Now or join our community of profitable traders, go to tradewithmenow.com. There's also a link in the description below.